Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm sure you've noticed I am filming out of a different location, and that is because I am indeed away on holiday, and so I will be making the next few videos out of this location before I am back home in a few weeks. For today's video, we're going to have a look at the case that has been very recently filed by Talia Barnett, also known by her stage name of FKA Twigs, versus Shia LaBeouf. So I don't really know much about FKA Twigs. I will be referring to her as Ms. Barnett for the purposes of the videos. So I don't know much about her other than the fact that she is a recording artist. I'm sure all of us know who Shia LaBeouf is. He is quite a dominant and problematic personality in Hollywood. So honestly, I'm not surprised to hear that a case has now been filed against him. So what we're going to do in this video is, as per usual on my channel, we will be looking at court documents that have been filed pertaining to this case. I will be summarizing the incidents, so I won't be talking about all of her allegations in great detail because number one, I like to summarize. That's how I like to do things on my channel. And number two, the links are always included in the description box so that you can read the documents in your own time. This one in particular is quite a short document in comparison to the other cases that I have covered because it is preliminary. There aren't any attachments, there are no exhibits, and no supporting witness statements. This is just the initial complaint that has been filed by Ms. Barnett. So we're going to start off by looking at the parties to the case and the jurisdiction. Then we'll move on to a very brief background segment to put things in context before moving on to the causes of action that Ms. Barnett is relying on. And then finally, we will look at the relief that she is seeking. All right, so the plaintiff is Ms. Talia Barnett, as I have said, and she is a resident of the UK living in the city of London. The defendant is Mr. Shia LaBeouf, who is an individual residing in the county of LA in California. In terms of jurisdiction, the case has been filed in the Superior Court of the State of California in the county of LA, and that is the appropriate venue for this claim because all of the wrongful acts that are being alleged by Ms. Barnett have occurred in LA. So I have explained in a previous video that you can't just randomly file a claim or a complaint in any court that you choose. It has to be the right jurisdiction, and that's usually either where the defendant resides or carries on their business, or where the cause of action has arisen. And in this case, both of these criteria have been satisfied. Ms. Barnett met Mr. LaBeouf on the set of a movie called Honey Boy in 2018, and their relationship commenced soon after filming concluded. And the gist of Talia's complaints is that Mr. LaBeouf essentially love-bombed her to begin with in order to reel her in when she was in a very vulnerable state, having just ended her 4-year engagement to Robert Pattinson, and she was also recovering from a painful procedure where she had some fibroid tumors removed from her uterus. According to Ms. Barnett, once Mr. LaBeouf had gained her confidence, that's when all of the problems in their relationship started. To summarize the entire complaint, Ms. Barnett alleges that LaBeouf engaged in physically, emotionally, and psychologically abusive behavior towards her throughout their relationship. There is a recurring theme of Talia being put in fear of her life by Mr. LaBeouf's actions. Around March 2019, Talia attempted to escape from Mr. LaBeouf. Around that time, she began packing her bags and belongings, and while she was doing so, the housekeeper was present. So here we have our first witness. The housekeeper had also provided sworn testimony that Mr. LaBeouf yelled at Ms. Barnett that she had to come with him, and when she refused, he became incredibly angry, violently grabbed her, and lifted her off the ground. She then continues to state that after this, he carried Ms. Barnett to a different room and locked the door. Mr. LaBeouf screamed the entire time, and eventually after he left, the housekeeper testified that Ms. Barnett was in a very traumatized state. She had been crying and her voice was very weak. A major component of Ms. Barnett's allegations is that Mr. LaBeouf knowingly transmitted a sexually transmittable disease. And in fact, Ms. Barnett states that he had gone as far as covering up his symptoms from Ms. Barnett by putting on makeup, and yet he persisted to engage in sexual relations with her. A woman by the name of Carolyn Foe, who dated Mr. LaBeouf during 2010 to 2011, is also coming out in support of Ms. Barnett. When you look at the actual complaint, it's clear that Ms. Barnett's legal team have interviewed Ms. Foe, because as you can see in paragraphs 30 and beyond, they actually start to detail her experiences with Mr. LaBeouf, which were described as disturbingly similar to Ms. Barnett's experiences, which demonstrates his pattern and practice of abusing women. In paragraph 33, it does state that Ms. Foe has chosen to ally with Ms. Barnett against Mr. LaBeouf. So from that, we can garner that she is a witness to this case, because she's not a co-plaintiff. This is not an action that has been brought by two plaintiffs. Ms. Barnett is the only one. So because of that, the only other role that Ms. Foe can play is that of a witness in support of Ms. Barnett's testimony in order to corroborate her evidence and make it much more credible in the eyes of a jury. The complaint also details Mr. LaBeouf's documented history of arrests and violence. So he's been arrested numerous times for altercations and physical assaults, drink driving, etc. There's also a segment on how Ms. Barnett's ex-assistant, Noelle O'Reilly, basically conned her and stole Ms. Barnett's identity for her own benefit. She also stole Ms. Barnett's personal belongings, such as her clothing, and sold them online to make a profit. And then, according to Ms. Barnett, Ms. O'Reilly actually went to Mr. LaBeouf and shared a lot of personal information that Ms. Barnett shared with her because she trusted her at the time. And this information did involve incidents with Mr. LaBeouf. Apparently, Ms. O'Reilly also took photos of the bruises that Mr. LaBeouf allegedly inflicted on Ms. Barnett, but then Mr. LaBeouf apparently stated that Ms. O'Reilly would claim that these bruises did not result from Mr. LaBeouf's physical violence, but were self-inflicted from a strenuous dancing session that Ms. Barnett had in February of 2019. So it's unclear whether Ms. O'Reilly is being pursued in a separate case altogether by Ms. Barnett for the identity theft and the theft of her belongings. But I do want to point out that she is not a co-defendant. She is not involved, as far as I'm aware, in any capacity as an official party to this case. She might be called upon as a witness by Mr. LaBeouf, or by the other side, she might be subpoenaed. But despite the crimes that she has allegedly committed, Ms. Barnett is not going after her at present, as far as I'm aware. The first cause of action is sexual battery. Let's have a quick look at the California Penal Code in order to ascertain what qualifies as sexual battery. Any person who touches an intimate part of another person, if the touching is against the will of the person being touched and is for the specific purpose of sexual arousal, sexual gratification, or sexual abuse, that person is guilty of misdemeanor sexual battery. So in the law, usually in most jurisdictions, sexual assault is when penetration of some form is involved. Basically, anything that falls short of actual penetration is sexual battery. So they only mention sexual battery, as you can see here in her complaint. But when I did further research, knowingly transmitting an STD is an actual felony offense under the California Health and Safety Code. But no reference has been made to that code. They're just alleging sexual battery. I just thought I'd point that out there because I did find it a bit strange that it wasn't included. Again, I don't practice in the US. I know a lot of you have already heard me say this, and it says so in my intro every single time. So I am going to make mistakes because every jurisdiction is different. She is claiming punitive damages in an amount to be determined at the time of trial. Punitive damages, as the name suggests, are damages that are awarded specifically to punish the perpetrator. So it's like a big old slap in the face, or maybe a slap on the wrist, depending on how much they are ordered to pay. But it is designed to be punitive in nature, so it has a punishing intention. The second cause of action is battery. And then the third is assault. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly explain what battery is and what assault is, because I do know that it's something that a lot of people can get confused. And actually here in Australia, we don't distinguish between the two. We just have assault the term battery isn't really used here. So it's one and the same, but in the US or in California specifically, it's not. So let's have a look at the differences here. Battery is defined in section 242 of chapter 9 of the California Penal Code, and it is any willful and unlawful use of force or violence upon the person of another. So it is the actual infliction of unlawful force or violence against another person. Assault is defined in section 240 of chapter 9 of the California Penal Code, and it is an unlawful attempt coupled with a present ability to commit a violent injury on the person of another. So it's not the actual infliction of unlawful force or violence against a person of another, it's an attempt coupled with a present ability. And as with the offense of sexual battery, Ms. Barnett is claiming punitive damages once again in relation to both of these causes of action. The fourth cause of action is intentional infliction of emotional distress. So the factual elements that must be proven are, firstly, that the defendant's conduct was outrageous. Secondly, the defendant intended to cause the plaintiff emotional distress, or the defendant acted with reckless disregard. Thirdly, that the plaintiff suffered severe emotional distress. And fourthly, that the defendant's conduct was a substantial factor in causing the plaintiff's severe emotional distress. So that's a very long way of saying that if you cause someone severe emotional distress through your actions, whether they are intentional or reckless, you are guilty of this offense. Having said that, we do have to pay close attention to the first element, which to me stands out as the most important one: outrageous conduct. So if you did something that was reasonable, that caused someone emotional distress, you can't be found guilty of this crime because your conduct wasn't outrageous. The simplest example I can come up with is if a doctor told you that a loved one died, and then that news caused you intense grief or distress. You can't then go and sue the doctor for that. Whatever it is, people come up with the silliest things to sue people sometimes, but the conduct has to be outrageous. And then finally, there's the fifth cause of action for gross negligence. The official definition for gross negligence is the lack of any care or an extreme departure from what a reasonably careful person would do in the same situation to prevent harm to oneself or to others. A person can be grossly negligent by acting or by failing to act. So now that we know what gross negligence is, let's have a look at the particular laws in California that enforce this duty of care that is being referred to by Ms. Barnett's lawyers. So this law can be found in section 1714 of the California Civil Code. And essentially it states that everyone has an ordinary duty of care to make sure that they don't hurt themselves and others. This is an ordinary duty of care. It's not a specific one that is tied to a certain profession or a certain setting. So in the law, for example, there are specific categories of duty of care. There's a duty of care owed by medical professionals to their patients. There's a duty of care owed by teachers to their students, so caretakers in general. There is a duty of care owed by business owners to their customers if any accidents occur on their property, on the property of the business. And then there is this type of duty of care, which is an ordinary general one that applies to everyone in society, not just a particular segment of society. And that's what is being alleged here in Ms. Barnett's statement, that at all times, Mr. LaBeouf owed the plaintiff, Ms. Barnett, a duty to act with ordinary care, and they allege that he failed to do so and that his conduct was an extreme departure from the ordinary standard of conduct. So the relief that Ms. Barnett is seeking is a judgment against Mr. LaBeouf for compensatory damages. So these are damages that will compensate her for what she has been put through and what has been inflicted upon her. They're also claiming exemplary and or punitive damages, which I have already explained as damages that serve to punish, not just compensate the victim. They are, of course, claiming legal costs, which is stock standard, and any other further relief that the court may deem just and proper. And she is also seeking a trial by jury. Now, this was only filed on the 10th of December. We are yet to hear an official response from Mr. LaBeouf in the sense that he hasn't filed a response with the court, but he has released a public statement. He said in an email that many of these allegations are not true, but that he owed the women the opportunity to air their statements publicly and accept accountability for the things that he has done. He also states that he was a sober member of a 12-step program. He's not cured of his PTSD and alcoholism, but he is committed to doing what he needs to do to recover and will forever be sorry to the people that he may have harmed along the way. Interesting, because if you ask me, this reads as a partial admission. He's not downright denying all the allegations. He has denied a few of them, but he does admit that he has wronged these women and has made them suffer. I wouldn't be surprised if he decides to settle this case out of court, because he doesn't seem to be very gung-ho about defending himself and categorically denying all of the allegations that have been made against him. So it's either that, or he will claim some kind of defense in the sense that he wasn't in the right state of mind. None of what he did was intentional, because intention is actually an important element that comes up in a lot of these causes of actions that Ms. Barnett is claiming. For example, sexual battery and battery and assault. Intention is a major component of these causes of action. But again, one can only speculate at this point. As always, everything is linked down below for your convenience if you want to read through these things in your own time. But other than that, we're still in the early stages of this case, so there isn't really much else to say. We're just going to have to wait and see what Mr. LaBeouf's next move is. So there we have it, another case alleging domestic violence, except this time it's a female victim and a male abuser. So it will be interesting to see and draw parallels between this case and Johnny's case, because a major aspect of my channel is talking about how male victims of domestic violence and abuse in general committed by females are rarely, if ever, taken seriously. So it will be interesting to draw parallels between the two. That's it for this video. Do let me know what you think in the comments below. Were you shocked? I personally wasn't. I've heard a lot about Mr. LaBeouf. I remember being very little watching Even Stevens when it was airing on TV, and it was very entertaining. I barely remember it. I was incredibly young. And anyone born, I suppose, after the 2000s probably wouldn't even know about Even Stevens. In fact, let me know if you grew up watching Even Stevens or if you know about it. I think that is Mr. LaBeouf's claim to fame. That's how he really kickstarted his career, and he was very young himself back then as well. It's always sad to see these people just absolutely self-destruct on such a public scale. And of course, I'm not saying that I feel sorry for him. If the allegations are true, then they are horrendous. And this is the thing. It doesn't matter to me that this is not a case of a male victim. My only issue is people take it seriously when it's a female victim and they don't when it's a male. But my heart goes out to Ms. Barnett, and if these allegations are true, no one should have to go through such a horrific ordeal, especially at the hands of someone that you trust and love. So hopefully Mr. LaBeouf will get the help that he needs. In fact, Ms. Barnett claimed that that was her initial goal. She said that she wouldn't have filed this had he agreed to attend therapy sessions and basically get help. But he refused, and so this was her only recourse. Also, another parallel is, you know how Amber said that she would donate all of the divorce settlement money, the $7 million, to charity, which up until now there is no proof that she did. Miss Barnett is very much claiming the same. Of course, I'm not saying she's lying. I'm just saying it's interesting that she too is claiming that any of the money that she is awarded in damages will be donated to domestic violence shelters and so on. All right, that's it for real this time. If I don't manage to release my next video on Michael Jackson before Christmas, I do wish all of you a very Merry Christmas. And if you don't believe in Christmas, then I just wish you a very happy end of December. I hope you're all doing very well in this season. Please stay safe, and I will catch you in a future video.